Hi, I'm Elias. This is Jill.
Hey.
We are Demonic Domestic. And today we want to talk about an experience that we had. We took a 2-day trip down to Los Angeles and we took in a couple theme parks for their haunt and Halloween events. And we had some thoughts.
For the first event too, we went to knottsscaryfarm for the first time. I'd been to Knott's when I was like 7, but I've never done the haunt event, and he has never been to Knott's at all. So we went in with pretty fresh eyes, and we wanted to just kind of talk about like how much we spent on the trip, kind of break it down for you guys, and let you know whether or not we thought it was worth the money that we spent.
When we went, we came to find out that you buy tickets for general admission for the event, and then on top of that, there were other things that you can buy into.
There weren't any like package deals. Everything was kind of like build your own adventure, which to some people could be a plus. For us, we thought it was kind of odd, but this was our price breakdown. So for the general admission just to get into the event was $59 a person. That was just admission into the Not Scary Farm event.
Then they also offer Fast Lane, which helps you get through the houses a little bit faster or to the entrance and get into it.
It's like Knott's version of a Fast Pass if you're a Disney adult.
You also have to pay for parking unless you ride share there.
Which is normal, and it was a normal price. It was $30 for parking.
And then they also had a food event called the Buffet, which was $45 per person to get in.
Yeah.
So for both of us total, we did buy all of those things. Obviously, we only had to pay for parking once, but over the grand total came to $524.51. That's with taxes and fees attached.
So that's the $59 a person, $135 a person for fast passes, $30 for parking, and $45 a person for the buffet.
They did offer a tour event or a tour package that
like
you
their
could buy.
VIP event.
They called it the Very Important Monster Tour. That comes with the buffet. It comes with parking. You also get a 6-hour tour guide with priority access to different house or to all the houses. You also get a special shirt and a photo op as well. But that was per ticket $549,
which we were taken aback by.
It was very pricey for what they were offering.
And we decided for our first trip we wanted to kind of go in at more of like an entry level. We wanted the help with the fast pass situation just because we know that it takes a long time to get through all the houses, so we thought that that would be helpful.
Yeah, so our day started with us driving in and we went to parking. And since we had prepaid for it, they scanned my phone, which the ticket was on. And
so that was quick and easy.
They gave us some information at that area that bag check was looking for bags that were very, very small.
Yeah, they were limiting the bag size. They said for security reasons. I'm not sure exactly why, but the bag size was literally like...
It was very small.
It was like a wallet.
It was like, yeah, essentially a small clutch.
Which, unless you read like the super fine print on the website, you won't know. And I know that like 80% of the women there had bigger bags, and so that was kind of an issue. I mean, we figured it out later.
But that didn't hold true for other content creators that were there with media night. So they obviously get bigger bags for their things.
So people with media passes, I'm guessing people with VIP passes probably didn't have that issue.
Maybe that was something we didn't explore, but it is a possibility. But so. We parked in a general parking lot and walked over. The walk wasn't very far. It was totally fine. And that's where we kind of ran into our first kind of issue of the night where we did, since we got tickets to the buffet, choose a time to go in. And
you have like a time slot, like a reservation. And we were trying to figure out, all they said was to enter through the restaurant, which was the famous Knott's fried chicken restaurant, which we found, and there was like a crazy long line coming out of it. And because of our time slot, we weren't sure if that was the line we were supposed to be in. So we kind of bopped around for a while. We asked like 3 different employees. They all sent us somewhere different. And then after the 3rd employee, we found out we should have just been in that line the whole time.
I will note that some employees did know where we had to be, but they didn't quite understand or grasp the process of which we had to go.
Yeah.
They told us where the entrance was, and they just pointed at the door. And I asked a follow-up question if I should go in, and then... they didn't know, but somebody else happened to say, no, the line starts
Yeah, you have to get in line first. You have to check in first, go through security. And then what was unfortunate was there was a lot of people in the line that we were in that were for a later time slot. And it wasn't until later when I'm thinking a manager showed up that they started telling people in line, if you're in the 5:30, you need to be in this line. If you're in the 6, this one. So we had people in front of us that waited for like 20 minutes and then found out they had to get in another line. So that was kind of frustrating. I don't know if it was because it was the first night, if they hadn't kind of figured that out
So
yet.
I'm going to put this up right now that this would have all been fixed with proper signage, but we're going to run into issues throughout this whole video that we saw all night, that signage and advertisement has been an issue. And from this point forward, if I say signage or advertisement issue, that's what it means, that there was really no signage or minimal small print.
Yeah, anywhere in the park, there was like very minimal signage, very minimal like direction. They didn't really advertise a lot of like the special events and the food and things like that.
And we'll get into that later. But so we finally got into our line and we got through the line. It was actually pretty quick. And we went through security, which was fine. We did a small photo op, which was for everybody in that line. And we got to the buffet experience, so we paid $45 each for that experience. You do get a cup going in that is valued around $17 with free refills all night.
Yeah, it's a free refill cup. So if you're somebody that wants like soda and water all night, that would totally be worth it for you. We mainly used it for water since water bottles are expensive in theme parks. So that is something to take into account.
So when we got into the buffet, we got to look around. We are seated at our own seat. We walked through. Since it's buffet style, the buffet building was very like a big hall, and the food was very.
You equated it to.
I equated it to like a Golden Corral or like a mid to low bar buffet.
It's knottsscaryfarm. It's like a family restaurant, so I understand that, especially like with picky kids, like they're gonna want chicken tenders and macaroni and stuff like that.
So as I said, I walked through, and then like if you notice in the video that we're gonna have with this, you'll see that the food is kind of here and there. I was excited to try the fried chicken because I heard the fried chicken was good. I'm not sure.
Everyone talks about like the famous Knott's fried chicken, and
I'm not sure if this was their buffet version,
fried chicken?
Or if you have to like order it fresh for it to be great. But I found it very.
It was meh. It was like not great fried chicken.
Agreed.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we.
The best thing was macaroni and cheese.
But it's hard to mess that up, really, if you're cooking it in batches.
Yeah. But it was fine. It was theme park food. I think because we're foodies, we tend to expect more. But like, if you're just like a family and you're going and you want to like fill up on food, so you're not spending money on food all night, like that's great. Because for that price for each person, your kids could chow down and then not want snacks all night.
Or if you're just a big eater in general, you can get all the portions you want. So we ate that, and then I had a plate. We weren't super over the moon, so we didn't want to be too full for what we were going to experience.
We did try some of the desserts. We tried some of the pie.
The pies were pretty good.
They were good, except for my like big critique was none of the desserts were on warmers. So like the pie would have been like probably a lot better if it was warm, but instead it was cold. It was like cold pie, which was weird to me.
It's strange to see that they were in a warming area, but no warmers were active the whole time.
Yeah.
So, but we ate. That was the point of getting those tickets.
Yeah, the point was that we were eating before. In hindsight, I wish we would have eaten before we went to the park and just not done the buffet.
And just went through security.
Yeah.
For other reasons that will come up. Afterwards, we're able to leave, and we have what's technically early access to the park. But that was a little misleading, in my opinion.
Yeah, so again, they didn't advertise. The early access that you get with the buffet is for a small portion of the park, which does include a cluster of mazes, but they didn't advertise that at all. So when we went in, we were kind of ushered over to like the roped off area where they do opening ceremonies. And we didn't really do anything during our early access. We just kind of waited for the park to open because no one told us, oh, there's like 4 mazes over here that you can do. And most of the mazes use natural light, like the outside light for their lighting. So if we did those mazes, we would have been doing them in full daylight, which, I mean, we care about because we like the ambiance. But if you just want to get the mazes done, I mean, that works. Yeah.
So, but we... for our experience, we were essentially standing for rope drop the whole time, and crowds gather around. You can kind of see what's going on. We got some good shots, and we got to kind of see. We saw quite a few media personnel that were also waiting, and they were talking, doing some crowd work too. But yeah, it was just us waiting until opening ceremonies happened, which was very fun.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool, and we got to an upside of the night we were very excited for. we got to walk through the ghost town.
Yeah, their whole opening ceremony was like around their ghost town theming, which is what Knott's is famous for, is their like Western ghost town aesthetic. So
that scare zone is great. It's wrapped in buildings. They have fog machines everywhere, and the scare actors have small, narrow areas that they can really do crowd work, and it's very, very
and the
fun.
what we were told about Knott's, and one of the reasons that I really wanted to go was because people kept saying that the scare actors are like top notch at Knott's Berry Farm. So, and that was very true for this scare zone. They were really good, really scary.
It was a really great lead up to when we found our first house, and we went into Grimoire.
That's a new house for this year. And that one was, how would you describe that? It was pretty much like you walked in and there was like a campsite set up, and then they were reading from this like old fairy tale book, and then they kind of like Evil Dead style released
so you're going through the time of this book, the Grimoire, which releases evil, and it's very fun. You have like flashback scenes where the color palette of the place changes. You go through war zones.
All the flashback scenes were in black and white, and the actors were completely painted black and white. It was a really cool effect.
The only critique I had for that one was the monsters from the Grimoire I found to be more comedic than scary.
They were goofy. They looked like characters in Halloween Town.
But overall, the concept of the house and the look of the house was very good.
Yeah.
I thought the scares were really fun. It was a little unnerving at some points. And I would go through that house again. I found it very repeatable.
Yeah, definitely. It was really beautiful. I loved the little like opening scene with the campers. I thought was a good idea to kind of set you up for everything. And then you like walk through a tent to get to like the flashback, which was really cool.
I'm going to specify now that in our videos, we won't show the insides of haunts. We like to experience the haunt, even if we repeat a house. It's because we loved it so much. But we'd rather kind of explain what the house was and what we saw and how we experienced it. There are plenty of other videos on YouTube where you can see.
Yeah, there's tons of walkthroughs if you want to watch a play-by-play of the house, but we kind of just tell you our experience and then let you experience it yourself. So.
Yeah, but so I would say Grimoire was an excellent house. I would give it like a 5 out of 5 if we went on a point scale.
Yeah, on a point scale, 5 out of 5. Would you go through the house again?
Absolutely. It was so good. And
I think just to see the things we missed, we would go through it again.
Yeah, because of course, at this point, we noticed that the park was starting to rapidly get more and more people coming in. Because when we walked out, we immediately walked into another house. Since we have the fast lane, we found out that the exit for this house led directly into the fast lane entrance for the Curse of Calico.
And Curse of Calico is like one of their classic houses. It's one that they have repeated multiple times, and it follows like the Old West vibe. This was like one of my favorites, but that's because I like the old school Old West, and it kind of included like the Wicked Witch theme and the persecuted witch, and she like gets her revenge. I'm always big on that.
It was a good house. I enjoyed it. I thought that the concept and look was good. The scares for me weren't really there. I was really wanting more from what I saw. I would say that it was repeatable for me, but because there are aspects of the house that I felt that I didn't see or get to witness. There's a really great scene with somebody on wires, and I wanted to see them ride a track or do something.
Yeah, from what I heard, a lot of the like big things that people rave about the house weren't working when we went through. I don't know if they fixed it by the end of the night or if they didn't fix it until later, but I would go through it again for the same, like just to see details, to see things that we missed.
But for me, it would be like a 3.5 out of 5.
I'd give it like a 4.
I was like, I feel like what I missed was a letdown initially. Maybe I missed something. It would get better if I saw those scares actually work. But it was overall good. We, at this point, left that house, and it led us out further back, but we didn't quite know where to go from there, as we had never been there before. So we backtracked, and that's when we went back through the scare zone, and we found out that we were headed towards the front of the park, which...
So when you do the buffet, you enter kind of through like the side of the park, so you don't really see like the front. There's like this really big like front photo op. So if you do get early access, you kind of have to search for that photo op, which luckily we did find it.
We did find it, but it was just more than one photo op. There's a few over there, and they look beautiful.
Yeah, they're really good.
And it's a grand entrance when you walk in, and it kind of gives you your bearings as to where the front of the is, and then you get to move forward. So we did take a few pictures and some video, which was great. And then we were able to spot an area where there was another haunted house. Once again, signage is an issue. We didn't quite know where we were going.
A lot of the houses, unless you entered from a very specific area, you did not see like a front visage or anything like that. It was very like teeny little signs, and then you would kind of just like stumble upon the house. Yeah.
So we did stumble upon one, which I really enjoyed. It's Pumpkin Eater. I heard a lot of people didn't quite go through it. There was really nobody there, even with the fast lane.
We walked in.
We just walked straight in.
I thought maybe it was a scare zone for a hot minute, but it was a house.
But we went in and it was a house, and I thought that the concept and the look inside there was creepy. It was dark with enough lighting. And then
that was another really pretty one, very like dark fairy tale.
And it smelled the earth, and it was so good. And they had a fair number of scare actors, but what we noticed was not a lot of the scares were working. Some of the animatronics weren't on. We knew it was coming. We walked slowly on purpose to see them happen.
Pop out, and they
never
pop
did.
out. I don't know if maybe because they weren't busy, they weren't like turning things on.
Yeah, I feel like you'd want to rely on animatronics.
But that was one too. We found out later they've run that one for several years, and I think they're going to retire it. So that could also be a thing.
But yeah, we walked through that, and I was like, I loved it. I was
concept look wise amazing.
Yep. Scary was not really there. The scare actors working there were doing the best they could, but there wasn't enough scare actors and not enough going on with the animatronics and atmosphere. So for me, this one I would actually give probably a 3.5 to a 4. It's higher because I loved it so much, but it wasn't at its full strength.
I would give it like a 3.
Oh,
I thought it was really cool and pretty, but I didn't really know, like, you get the vibe, like the Pumpkin Eater like vibe, but you don't really know what the story is. And I don't know if maybe with the other scare actors you kind of figure it out a little more, but they never really gave you like a good storyline through it. You're just like, oh, it's scary pumpkin people.
Yeah, it was very James and the Giant Peach, but a scary pumpkin.
Yeah, that would be a scary
that would be one. Yeah, so and after this we walked out, and it led us out into right close to another maze, which was Dark Ride.
Yeah, and that's a fan favorite. That was one I was excited to go through because everybody that's like a big theme park fan has said that they absolutely love Dark Ride. And it was a blast.
I absolutely, once again, this was a strong contender for my favorite for the night. It was going in, the idea being you go into a dark ride and it starts getting more and more devious as you get through it.
It's basically like every kid's worst nightmare, getting trapped in a dark ride after hours.
And it's being run by
carnies,
evil carnies. And it was, in this one, the scare actors were all on point. The atmosphere was gorgeous. It felt like an old dark ride when you first walk in, and then it just gets more insidious and more nefarious.
And then you walk through like the janitor's room, and there's all these cameras, and you realize, oh, we're like in an area we're not supposed to be in. It's really fun.
And when you get to the grand finale for this house, you have a lot of scare actors.
And it's a huge room, which is really rare for like haunts. Usually they keep you in these tiny little hallways, and it was just this huge like finale room that you walk through. It was really good.
It was an excellent house. I was like 5 out of 5. Everything worked.
Yeah, and this is the last year that they're doing that one. So if you do have tickets to Knott's, or if you're able to snag a ticket before it goes away, make sure you go through this house multiple times because it will not be coming back.
Oh, there's so much to see when you go through it, and so many scares that are multifaceted. It's really great.
Yeah.
At this point, our feet were both a little tired. We were both had walked a lot because we're trying to figure the park out.
Yeah, because neither of us have been to the park before, we probably walked in circles a lot.
Oh, definitely. But this actually got us to a very happy accident. We ended up watching one of the shows, which was Carnival of the Grotesque. It was great.
It was a great show.
It's all outdoors, first come, first served.
The stage was really pretty. All of the lighting, they had a lot of fire, so that was fun.
They did. So, and that's kind of what got our attention. But all of the acts were great. You had the hosts were very funny. They were engaging.
There's like a sad clown character that's there the whole time. He never performs anything, but he's just walking around eating popcorn and
sweeping.
He was my favorite.
He was great. He was great. So the acts come out, and you have several. You have a group of dancers that were very well choreographed.
They were really good. There's the aerialist. She's aerialist that hangs by her hair. She was really good.
And then Fire Dancer is there. He was excellent. He very well crafted act.
Yeah, he did a lot of like newer fire techniques, like with the long poi, and he did all kinds of fun stuff. There was the chair guy. I don't even know how to describe. Chair stacking aerialist, gymnast.
He was fun.
He was fun.
He fun to watch.
You could tell he really like milked his act.
And then their grand finale was this big Wheel of Death act, and it is something to be seen.
It's anxiety inducing. Everyone that was watching him was so nervous the entire time. I heard people behind me like gasping. He was good.
It was a very good show to sit down, to rest, eat,
to give yourself a break,
catch up. If we would have had like nachos or a snack, or anything that was finger food, would have been great. It would have been good to see something advertised where we could pick it up and watch. But
a little bitter.
It would have been nice. But that was really great. That gave us plenty of pep in our step to get back to the other side of the park, which took some time to find. We walked our way through the Forbidden Lake Scare Zone to get to Forsaken Lake.
That's what it's called.
To get to the next cluster of scare zones, or mazes. And that scare zone I wanted to like because it feels like it should be creepy, very
And the idea is really creepy. I like that idea.
Problem that we encountered was you can see all the scare actors from a mile away. Also, it's hard to find the exit and entrance to get there because it's in the shadows in the dark.
For pretty much all of the scare zones, you don't really know you're in the scare zone until you are like almost all the way through it. There's only a couple of them where we like found the actual entrance to the scare. A lot of them we just stumbled into, and then we were like, oh, there's scare actors here. I think this is the lake one. Pretty much it.
So in that one specifically, it's such a vast area, and they don't have they have smoke machines, but that smoke machine, since it's so open, just dissipates immediately. And you can see all the scare actors walking around. I wish that they had more facades, more things that they can work around.
If they had more structures in order to create like what the Wild West one created, where it was more enclosed and more opportunities for things to jump out at you, I think it would have been more effective.
The scare actors did the best they could with what they had.
And they were good. Scare actors are great.
But that was just my critique while we walked and we made our way to the jumble of mazes to try to figure out how to get into them.
Yeah, so again, really bad signage. A lot of the mazes in that cluster, we didn't know that we were walking into a couple of them until we were like at the front of the maze. We thought we were in line for one, and then we ended up in another one. So just be aware that like you might be a little confused with the lines. The first one that we went through in that little cluster was the Waxworks maze. Oh my god, I loved that one.
Excellent. It was very, very good. It's a tried and true idea that you've seen in classic horror movies. You go into an old wax museum and you start uncovering that
the creator has gone mad and has started dipping
noticing
people
that
in wax.
The wax figures aren't what you thought. And then you do start seeing more and more, and you get into the minutiae how they're being built and how they're pouring the wax. I felt for the scare actors in this house.
It was so hot and stuffy and gross. All the scare actors in there. I hope you get good breaks where you can step outside. It was really hot and stuffy, which made you feel like claustrophobic, and
it was that's mitigated a little bit by the fact that it's so well lit while you're walking through, and you really get a good look at things. Problem with that we ran into was so many people are stopping to look at how great everything is.
And it was media night, so we were expecting people to be filming, but a lot of the people that were filming were like really slow going through the houses, so they were backing the lineup, which
but I was like, overall I thought the concept of this was fine. The look was great. They did a great job.
If you like any of the
House of Wax, any of the early 2000s, Ghost Ship,
13 Ghosts, like that vibe, that'd be the house that you like.
Definitely. The scares were pretty good. Since it was well lit, it was a little harder to pull those scares off, I would say. But the end gets very claustrophobic.
I would say that's more of a body horror house anyways than less of like a jump scare house. There was a lot of gore. There was a lot of like...
You're looking for the spectacle.
You're looking, for the spectacle, the gore, and then the effects, like the wax going to pour on you, and you're nervous about like being hot and being burnt and things like that. I wouldn't say it's as much about like jump scares.
Yeah, I would repeat that house.
Yeah, I would too.
Just to look at everything. It was really good. And then after leaving this house, we did notice that the lines were picking up here and there. But we left Waxworks, and we were trying to go into one house that we'll talk about in a moment, but we ended up in the line.
We accidentally ended up in a different house.
Mostly because the lines for the fast lane and the main house are in different spots. Side note, this becomes a problem, especially if you want footage of the openings facade of the house, you're not going to get that because you're going through like a side door and you don't get to actually see the entrances of the houses. But we ended up in line for Bloodline,
which we'd heard. I had heard a lot about it. People were really excited about it. It's a concept that Knotts has tried before, where it's essentially like a shooting house. I wouldn't call it a shooting gallery. It's basically like a video game version of a house where you're given a gun and a mission, and then the characters in the house have like the body armor on, where if you shoot it, like it gives you points or it like lights up and things like that.
But not all of them.
But not all of them. And again, we're gonna go into what we thought of the house. Overall, the design of the house I thought was really interesting. It was kind of like vampire steampunk, which you don't really see very often. Usually with vampires, it's like the old Victorian or like the new like kind of Lost Boys-y vibe. This was like steampunk vampires, which is a cool concept. They do have to have a pre-show, which I know slowed the line down, and the pre-show is so fast that you have no idea what's going on. They literally shove you in a room. They show you like a 10-second video where they kind of explain that you're battling vampires, and then they say like, oh, pick your weapon, and then they shove you in another room where you get to pick a weapon. A
small moment where they say that there are different types of weapon, which I missed completely because it was so fast. I did get a weapon that may not have been the best one, but it doesn't matter because as you're going through, you're so clogged up with people in front of you because people are trying to play this game that you're stuck in doorways a lot while people are in a room and then they move forward.
Yeah, and then the actors don't get a chance to like be shot and reset when there's like a constant stream of people. A lot of the scare actors didn't even act like they were shot, I think, because they would never get anywhere. They would get shot and then just be staying in one spot while like bunches of people went by.
There were a couple of scare actors that I saw that weren't doing anything. They were just sitting.
Yeah.
Because they don't really have something that they can do because they can't act like they just got shot if they're trying to reset and their caller resets faster than they do.
So I think conceptually, great idea.
It would be a fun secondary event.
Yeah, that was what we got to. When we got out of the maze, I was like, I really wish that it was more of like a structured event where even if you could like reserve a time slot and it's more of like an escape room where you're sent like your group of people and you get an actual individual experience. There's this big finale at the end, which we didn't get to see because our group essentially finished the finale before we even walked in the room.
It was only like 3 or 4 people ahead of us, and they stood in the doorway, and we weren't able to go through. Don't get me wrong, I know they're excited to do it, but by the time we got in there, the scare actors were resetting because this is the grand finale, so they're going to redo the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it was basically like everyone had to work together to like defeat the big evil entity at the end, and which would have been cool to see, but we didn't get to see it. And then I love going through haunts, but I am one of those people where I can get overstimulated and then it kind of makes me like anxious and almost shut down. This maze made me so anxious to walk through and overstimulated because you're already going through a haunt, so you're thinking people are going to jump out at you. They hand you a gun. They're telling you to shoot things that are jumping out at you. It's very loud. It was like crazy. Usually when I go through haunts, I actually plug one of my ears because it helps me not get overstimulated. I can't do that when you're holding a gun. So I had like not a fun time. It wasn't like a maze where it's crazy and you come out and you're like, that was crazy, it was so fun. I came out and was like, I hated that. It was horrible. It was very rough. And then I was trying to actually play the game, but my gun, since people were already shooting them, wouldn't register shots, and it killed my character, and my gun just like auto reset on its own. So at the end, you're supposed to get a score, which I never got. Yeah, and nobody in our party did.
They were just shooting wildly.
So if you're one that's like, oh, it's like a video game, I'm going to go in, I'm going to get a score, you're not going to get a score.
No, you're not really.
Unless they figure it out by the end of this run and they're able to like get the guns working properly, you won't know how many vampires you shot, you won't have a score. So
it's pretty rough. I thought that the concept is fun. On paper, it sounds fun.
Concept, like 5 out of 5. That's like a really good idea.
I thought the house, if I was able to stop and actually look and enjoy it, looked great. They had a lot of detail. And then some of the makeup on some of these guys,
the costumes,
was great.
We went through a bar scene, and a lot of the vampires' makeup was amazing. The bar was really pretty. So I think like 5 out of 5 for that. But as far as...
There were no scares.
There were no scares. Things can't jump out at you.
They know that they're being shot at.
They know they're being shot at.
And you're always looking. So that was me.
And I wouldn't go through it again unless
if it was just a game or just a house.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either. It has to be one or the other. I don't think this works as both, especially for how busy it was. So leaving this, we took a moment to catch our breath and really think about that house, because we both wanted to like it. We heard great claim for it, but it wasn't there for us.
Yeah, we'd been through other shooting houses before.
Yeah.
So.
But at this point, we noticed we exited for the house that we wanted to go into at that moment for that line. We found Dark Entities.
And that's a sci-fi themed haunt. Another kind of like well-known concept where a kind of like disease takes over a spaceship, like an alien disease takes over a spaceship. That was pretty much the whole concept. There were other things thrown in, like the robots that work on the ship had gone haywire and were like killing people, and there was a lot going on. That maze was really fun. I think that concept is like a genuinely scary concept for a lot of people. Yeah, I thought it was really nice.
I thought it was good. I actually really enjoyed this house. I like sci-fi horror. Event Horizon is one of my favorite movies. Dead Space is my favorite game franchise. This definitely fit that body horror. The house is getting old. Yeah. That was my biggest complaint. I was like, this feels like it's being neglected a little bit. It's starting to get a little bit, it doesn't have as much
And I've heard people
luster.
say like, oh, I love that Knott's repeats houses because they can improve on them year after year. But for some of the houses, to me, it was almost like a downside. Like they hadn't worked on it. Like they were just bringing out all the old stuff and they hadn't really fixed up a lot of things. There was some areas that did feel kind of run down. But overall, like, it was a fun house.
It was good.
It was good to look at. They had a lot of cool effects.
The floor vibrated. My feet were a little hurty. So
we got a foot massage a couple of times.
It was nice. Good. I would give that one probably 3.5.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I want to give it more, but it was just, there were some parts that I couldn't overlook the fact that it could be better in some parts.
I would give it like a 3 out of 5. And I think I would go through it again, probably just because I do think I missed some things, and I would hope that maybe some of the things that weren't working
were working. I agree. I would repeat it. I was like, it was fun for me.
That one had a lot of animatronics.
It did have a lot of animatronics.
So if you like animatronics, that one's for you.
We should specify, so with the house, the Bloodline, I probably would give that house, I don't know, maybe like a 2.
Yeah.
I thought they had a lot of good ideas. The atmosphere looked cool if we could enjoy it.
Yeah, I would give it a 1 if the scare actors weren't doing their darnest to make that house work.
I know, they were doing their best. Some of them were. Other ones just sat and didn't care.
I did genuinely get scared. One of the scare actors, I was very distracted trying to shoot one of the scare actors, and another one came like right up next to me and scared the bejesus out of me. So they are doing their job as well as they can in that house.
So this brought us to our final house of the night. We went directly into the depths. This house is supposed to be a mining town on the coast. Digs too deep.
Yeah, a coastal mining town. They're like mining through the caves, and then they start finding like scary, dark things within the caves. Gorgeous house, beautiful.
There was a lot of great effects,
and that one actually did have a lighthouse that you walk into. There was a lot of super good characters. The miners, there were like evil mermaids. Like
the makeup was beautiful. They had like miner suits and diving suits. I thought were great. But therein lied an issue. Was this supposed to be a nautical horror house, or was this supposed to be an underground mining horror house?
Yeah.
They're both two ideas that personally I didn't feel really merged together. I know they were trying to merge two by putting it on a coastal town, but that just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I kind of wish that they would have just picked like the nautical stuck with that, because that was where they like killed it.
They shined.
There's a scene with a giant kraken. They do like that water effect where it looks like you're walking through water.
Giant shark.
They had a giant shark at the end that scared the crap out of these two girls in front of us.
It was a really fun house. They had some great laser effects too. It was super fun, but the concept was just a little bit too much.
Which we didn't realize until we went out, and then we were like, it was a coastal mining town. There were miners, and then all of a sudden we were on a ship, and we were like, what was the like concept of this house?
have Davy Jones.
Yeah, there was like a Davy Jones at the end, so I kind of wish they would have just stuck with the nautical theme, and then really like nailed it.
If they split this idea into two different ones, I think being underground in a mining situation,
and that would work. They have like
the mining
rides,
stuff. Yeah,
so that would totally work. Yeah.
The scares were good. I thought that this one was definitely like a 4 out of 5. I definitely, the concept eats at me, and I would go through it again.
I would definitely go through it again. There was a lot of effects that I wish that we could have stopped and like looked at for a little longer. So yeah, I would go through it again.
And I should also specify, I did say that that was our last house for the night, which is true. We did learn that there was one more house. It was Mesmer.
Yeah, and we had no idea that the house even existed because it was really far out on one edge of the park with no scare zone between it and all the other events. So we didn't have anything like guiding us to the house. I would be interested in if they had low like guest appearances at that house.
Maybe.
I'm wondering if we're just dumb and didn't read the map well enough.
I was like, we did read the map, and we tried to get to a lot of places multiple times, but there are certain areas that don't really make sense, or are dead ends, or it looks like you can walk through and you can't. There was no signage that we can see, like big signs that said Mesmer this way. There's no way to direct us.
Yeah, and
to
most
where we
like
had to
of the
go.
other haunt events we've been to, there's giant signs everywhere that essentially say like what sections the different houses are, are, all this stuff. There wasn't anything like that at Knott's. So yeah, we totally missed a house, unfortunately. I know Mesmer was like a sideshow circus themed house, which we've seen a lot of, but I bet it was amazing and we missed it.
I think the ironic thing about this is after all of this, we were actually on that side of the park, and we were trying to figure out what food we wanted, but there was also a signage issue where we didn't know a lot of the specials, so we just ended up getting some very good tacos and a drink with that.
Yeah, we got really good food that we did really enjoy. We got the tacos with rice and beans and a michelada. But how their food advertisement worked is if you're using the app on the map, you have to click on the individual restaurants to see what the menus are, and then they don't advertise what the themed food is, which that's like our big thing when we go to the haunt events. We want to try the food that you can't get all the time in the parks. So we would have had to either walk to every single restaurant and look at what the seasonal items were.
Which is on the window. Have big boards that said they might have had a couple small ones through the park, but not actively where you can walk up and look. So that was an issue.
So yeah, if like the themed food is your big thing, you can figure it out on the app, but I would do it way ahead of time so you're not just like standing.
You'll have
somewhere
to do homework before you go in.
You'll have to do homework before. They don't just like give you a list of all the seasonal food, which would have been helpful. And then we did go on a couple of the rides while we were there. And we went on Ghost Rider, which is their wooden coaster.
I did not know that this ride was wicked fast.
I didn't think I had to warn you that it was wicked fast.
I had no idea. And
that ride is so fast that I remember that ride from when I was 7. That's how
love
fast it is.
that ride. I love it so much. I was so surprised. That was my biggest surprise of the night, was going on this ride, because I went and going, oh, it's a wooden roller coaster. We've all been on different ones around the country or at different spots if you've been to them. But it's
great.
So fast. It's great. You feel like getting whipped around. It's really smooth for what it is.
Yeah, and then we went on the Calico Mine ride, which is a classic. And then they rethemed that for the haunt event, and it was like a candy mountain ride, but there's an evil witch that has like lured kids in with the candy. Really cool. That ride is so run down. It actually added to the scare factor because we were nervous that our train was going to stop working.
There was a couple points on our ride specifically to what's going on where the brakes either were engaging without needing to or against going on the track, and it vibrated.
It was so loud.
And it screeches very, very
it was
loudly.
Like scary loud.
So we both kind of looked at each other. It was like that. I don't think that that's supposed to happen. So it was a good sit down ride, but that part was definitely kind of rough, especially when you see such an old ride.
And I always appreciate like an overlay for special events. I always think it's cool when they do that. So I'm glad that they are continuing to do that. But yeah, they probably should. They need to lube up their trains a little bit.
And we also went on Hang Time, which
we went on Hang Time.
Super fun for me. I like big coasters. I hadn't been on one in a long time. It's such a smooth ride. It is a more extreme ride for it puts you in weird positions on the car, but I had a really great time.
It was definitely a smooth coaster. It wasn't like one where I got off and felt like my back was going to hurt the next day. But if you haven't been on a roller coaster in a while and you're now 30, it might make you a little nauseous. Super
fun. I'd recommend on it. And then we had to walk across the park again. We got better at it this time, but we made it to the Conjurer show.
Yeah, we wanted to see most of the shows that were there. The only one we missed was there was like an adult puppet show that we missed, but we got to see the Conjurer. That was super fun. It was another good chance for us to kind of rest for a second. Our feet were hurting.
They were hurting by the end of the night. The dogs were barking, but
yeah, it was a really fun like comedy magician. But it was still like in a like fun creepy vibe.
Yeah.
A lot of the shows at Knott's reminded me of the circus from We're Back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I can say so.
Yeah, but he was really fun.
Zabrecki.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I was like, I recommend going to those shows. It's a good time to get some water, relax, and get a few good laughs in with some good.
And it is a small theater, so it's very interactive.
Very fun. Before we left, we wanted to try to look at some of the stores, maybe buy some merch because we like to buy things from our show, from our trips. We went into one show that was towards the back of the park.
We went through the 1920s scare zone to get to one of the merch spots. We went through the 1920s scare zone, and that was really fun. That was like scary prohibition-y themed, which was a really fun concept. They had like ghost gangsters and flappers walking around.
All of the scare actors were great. They were all in character, and you can tell that they were just having so much fun.
Yeah, that was less of like a scare zone and more of like a interaction zone. Very talkative,
and it's very well lit. In the store there, they had a lot of art. They had
an art gallery. It was like
old
a special
years.
Yeah. They had like a special art gallery with things themed after like the different haunts, which was really pretty and fun. And then a lot of their merch was from like older events. They had a lot of Elvira merch from her show that used to run at the park. And then they had some like John Waters merch.
I think the standout for me was their spirit jersey this year.
Yeah, their spirit jersey was really cute.
So it's very simplistic, which I like. It's not overly colorful. It's all black with some skeletons on the front, and then on the back it says "Not Scary Farm," and it has written in bones, and then with a couple bats. It's not overbearing. It's just a fun thing to wear, and you can probably wear that all year.
Yeah, that's
really
something you could wear like normally, and people wouldn't give you weird looks. Some of the other spirit jerseys that I've seen, like I love Disney spirit jerseys, but they put so much stuff on some of their spirit jerseys that I wouldn't wear it out. I would just wear it to the park, and that's it.
So, but those are the standouts for me for the merch. We went to some of the other stores. They had a couple fun little knickknacks, but nothing really that we ended up going home with.
So yeah, overall, now we're gonna kind of go back. So the admission, this $59 a person, I think is fair.
I thought that
would be more. That was more than fair.
But that's just gonna get you into the park, and this is where we really had to look at the value. That $524
for both of us.
For both of us, seemed fair. I would have skipped the buffet. I think. I think the food was fine if you're not super picky. But if we're going to go to an event, I'd rather pay for better food or some of the other things on offer.
If it's $45 a person, so that would be $90 for both of us. We could easily just spend $100 at a nicer restaurant that we like and get a better experience.
And then just take an empty water bottle if we can. I was like, because we drink more water than anything.
We could have bought one of the reusable cups and just shared.
That, or we could have saved that money for like cocktails or something in the park, because you're gonna have to pay for that anyway.
The fast lane.
The fast lane is a necessity
for us. You need it. If you want to do all the mazes, you need it. By the time we got out of two houses, most of the lines were over an hour.
Easy. And then we also were hearing rumblings from some of the other guests there that some of the houses, the fast lane was backing up. So they were actually having to wait extensive amounts of time.
30 to 45 minutes in the fast lane. If you pay $135 for Fastlane, I don't think you should have to wait longer than like 20 minutes to get into a house.
At most. So you need that. Otherwise, you're going to be in some of the general lines were getting really long towards the middle of the night. So it's the $59. I think you're going to, unless you get there really early, you pick your favorite houses and hope that you're going to get in. And then you obviously have to pay for parking. You don't really have a choice.
It's fine. And the parking was fine. There is $45 preferred parking. If you want to be slightly closer, you can pay that extra $15.
But the walk really isn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad.
Overall, for me, the $524 price point was too much.
Yeah. I think for the experience that we had, that was like way too much.
I would. I'm not really interested in their tour. I think that was $549 per person. That's way too
over
much.
$1,000 for it?
Both of us. Mm-mm. Yeah, so I would say that the value for this currently isn't worth it. I feel like $135 should be total for your fast pass ticket and entry. It's just, some people love knots, and if you're one of them, that's excellent. I really do hope that you have a lovely time, but unless the prices are adjusted or they find a better way to manage both your direction and your time, that's going to be a miss for me.
Yeah, and I mean, we might have a better experience if we go again, just because now we do know the park layout, but I feel like a lot of people, this is going to be their first time going, so that's the experience they're going to have. They're going to be lost like we are. They're going to not like know where to eat. They're not going to know like how the mazes work right away. So I feel like if it's your first time going, save money and don't do the buffet. Eat somewhere to enjoy, that you know you're going to enjoy. And then I would definitely buy the fast lane. I wish that it was cheaper. I feel like the $59 admission plus $135 fast lane is a little ridiculous, but if you have the money, buy the fast lane. It will save your night.
I think yeah. So overall, that's our thoughts on Knott's Scary Farm 2022. Fun event, overpriced. But those are just our thoughts. If you have questions or comments, or you just need more specification, feel free to leave a comment down below, or reach out to us, and we'll more than happy to go more into the details there.
Yeah, and by all means, go to Knott's Scary Farm, have a great time.